Hey everyone, Jason here from Off the Beaten Path, and we're picking up where we left off down at Riley's Monument. So we stopped there for a lunch stop in the last video and went and checked out the monument to Jack Riley, and now we're heading off from there towards our destination. So we're heading back up the way we came in initially and then onto the Blue Gum Ridge track, which turns out to be a nice steep track, lots of climbs. Which takes us up near the summit of Mount Tempest here. We then get down onto Walker's Road, the D9 track where we sort of cut across to the Dead Finish track, and then on to Dunstan's Road, which gets us through to Gibson's Hut. Now, Gibson's Hut was originally planned to be the destination for today, but look, when we got there, it was just packed. And did get some footage of the hut, but there were people actually camping in the hut, so didn't want to film all their gear and everything, so we just took some footage of the outside of the hut. And then from there we continued on Shady Creek Lower Track, onto the Cattleman's Track, down to Wheelers Creek Hut. And we thought Wheelers Creek Hut campground is massive, couldn't possibly be full, but how wrong were we? It was packed. Now, a couple of the guys did find a little spot in there where we could probably share with some other people that were already set up, but I suggested we push on to the Paddy Joy campground, which is just here, just past Wheelers Creek Hut, much less well known, and a much smaller campsite. And yeah, glad we did. We pushed on there and got there. There was nobody there. There was even some firewood left from the guys who had last used it, which is always nice. And that's where we set up camp, and that's where today's video ends, guys. So let's get into it. Hey everyone, Jason here from Off the Beaten Path. So yeah, picking up from where we parked for our lunch stop near Riley's Monument there. So heading back up the track and past the start of the walking track on the right hand side. And as you just heard in the intro, we're following back along the initial part of the Surveyors Creek Track and then taking Blue Gum Ridge Track, which proves to be nice and steep. But even this section, I was wondering how the vehicle would go climbing back out. That's the start of the walking track just there on the right hand side, and we had no troubles at all, which is really good to see. So as I said, yeah, pushing back up Surveyors Creek Track and looking for that start of the Blue Gum Ridge track that I pointed out on our way in. Lots of fun exploring a new part of the high country. This is a pocket of the high country. I've done none of these tracks, never been over this way before, so always enjoy finding new parts of the high country to travel and explore. So yeah, it wasn't too long and we're sort of back up that initial hill and making pretty good time on what was a pretty well maintained track. The odd tree fall here and there, but fortunately that all long since been dealt with by others with chainsaws, and we didn't have to worry about them terribly much. And yeah, we've just found the start of the Blue Gum Ridge track, and there was quite a big culvert at the start of it, and you're sort of turning across it, and it's not too hard at all to end up with your right front wheel and your left rear wheel with no traction. And when you got no lockers and no traction control, that's it, you're going nowhere because you've got no traction. Bit of gravity on my side there, it was able to reverse down. So a little bit of a shallower line with the turning up into it, and that seemed to just work. And we're straight into a decent climb on this Blue Gum Ridge track. You can see there how steep that was. And just catching up to Dan here, and I think Paul might be in front of him. see the track just keeps on climbing through here. Now initially we had really good traction, and you know, it was steep, but it wasn't really anything to be too concerned about. No, I said initially. Just catching up to Dan here. I think he's just giving Paul ahead of him a little bit of space. So likewise, I've done the same, giving him a little bit of space there, and you can see the surface of the track here is starting to change. Gotta love these sharp high country corners when you tow your trailer. Hairpin's even more fun. Back onto another climb. A lot of loose soil and vegetation on the top of this section of the track, and traction reflected that actually. Yeah. And you can start to see the front wheels. You can see the vehicle slow down markedly, and the front wheels are throwing a bit of dust up. This does not do it justice. This was like a mushroom cloud of dust. Just edging my way forward, just kept the gas on. There's no way I was easing up. That's what the guys behind were seeing. That mushroom cloud of dust just disappeared the whole track. Adam, I think, was next behind me. He actually had to stop and wait because he just simply couldn't drive through it because he couldn't see where the track was. But yeah, working real hard through this section, the car was. Just, you know, looking for traction anywhere I could get it. Any little thing that could be done. And yeah, this later section you can see back to a much better traction surface. Still steep, but maintaining a much more reasonable pace, and just starting to make some ground there on Paul and Dan up ahead. And of course, as is always the case in the high country, what goes up must come down, and it's not too long before we are heading back down. Some fantastic views into the distance there in this part of the high country, that's for sure. And the bush through here certainly changes markedly as well, from very enclosing to more open. There's pretty scenic drive through here on the whole. But yeah, just working our way through this section of track. See the sun's sitting pretty low. It was getting a little late in the afternoon, but still had plenty of light obviously. It's just when you're heading west in the late afternoon, it does tend to hit you. Again, I was almost worried this hill was going to be like the other one, but I did apply the right foot, and we never slowed up quite as much as we did on the other one, and we're able to just keep that momentum going. This hill just seems to keep going and going forever. feels that way anyway, doesn't it, when you're on these kind of tracks? But really nice drive. I definitely recommend it. Obviously, it would be best if you were not heading this way late in the afternoon, but the reality is, if you're heading out to Riley's Monument, it's probably going to be afternoon by the time you're heading back, unless you are camping reasonably close by and head out there first thing in the morning, in which case you're going to have morning sun on your way out there anyway. Just coming to a clearing here, and the sun peeking its way through, as you can see. And yeah, after that steady climb up, once again it's time to be making our way down. So yeah, just controlling our pace down here, and the gearing in the 76 is great for this sort of stuff, even with the trailer on. Oftentimes second gear low range, just to touch the braking here and there. Really happy with how it performed. And once again, you can see, the track here is a little bit chewed out, nothing too severe, but just a little bit more worn from people doing a little bit more work to get up there. And you can see Dan over there just waiting to make sure that I don't miss the continuation. So that's Tin Creek Track on the right hand side, and we're keeping to the left of this intersection and following on Blue Gum Ridge Track. Working our way along and in and out of this ridgeline. It's quite a varied track. Some of the sections like this are sort of on the edge of the hill, others cut through or over the hill. And at this time of day, the lighting was really nice, making for a great trip. These sort of rising corners are always good in the high country. There's plenty of them, and made that little bit more challenging towing the trailer. Plenty of firewood there. Somebody's cut it up and left it behind, but we already had plenty for tonight. And I think Matt, who we're meeting up, had planned to gather some more. So. So yeah, still working our way around and up this hill. And that's pretty much how it felt when you sort of got this far around the hill. The sun just hit you straight in the face. Lining up the trees nicely, but not so great when you're driving to have the sun directly in your face like that. every time you think you're to the top, you're sort of to the top of a crest like this, and you think, yeah, it's and then it's like, actually it's not quite the top, but so let's just hang on for a minute, because here we are, we're going again for another climb. Yep, blinded by the light just a little there. You can see here the track climbing away and swinging around and heading towards that sun. So it was the opportune and just continuing on with that section of the track. So it did tend to sort of climb and wrap its way around the hill here, and again this section had the look of a section of track that had been chewed up a little bit due to the loads and that sort of thing, so I was keen to keep the momentum up and also make sure that I could pick up some signage utilising the graphics. Yeah, still climbing this hill. As I said before, these hills just seem to go on and on forever, and every time you think you're at the top, you're actually not. I think we topped out along here at Mount Tempest at 1210 metres, and some sections of the track were down sort of as low as 700 or 800. So a good few hundred metres of elevation climbed and descended over time. This section of track really didn't seem all that well travelled. You can see it's very grassed and you can only just faintly make out the wheel tracks, and some great views off to the left of the high country. Yeah, still working our way along this sort of grass track. A little bit more defined now in terms of wheel tracks, but still very grassed. And you can see the bushes sort of opening up a little bit ahead here as we work our way down through this valley. Here, so Dean's finished his fella and he's just a little concerned about how we're going and how long our load is taking. So just continuing here to work our way along the Blue Gum Ridge track. Some great views here. Again, you can see those dead little suckers along the track there that we're pretty sure were sprayed, but lighting was outstanding at this time of day. And you're not sort of probably, as always, seeing the full view that we were seeing, but well and truly worth it. So we just come here to the end of the Blue Gum Ridge track where it meets up with Walker's Road, and we're meeting up with Matt, who's a good mate of Dan and Paul's. They regularly go four-wheel driving with him and work with him. He's another GU Patrol owner, so we'll try not to hold that against him. And yeah, he'd just been kindly gathering up some firewood while he was waiting for us, which was awesome. And we all sort of just saddled up and headed off on Walker's Road to continue towards Gibson's hut. Now, as I said in the intro, Gibson's hut was originally going to be our destination today. The plan was to camp there. However, the campground at Gibson's hut is not actually that big, and also it's it was packed out when we got there, and there's not a lot of flat space there either. Most of the camp area's got some kind of fall to it. So yeah, making our way here along Walker's Road though, another one of those great high country tracks with a very steep drop off on the one side there. Track itself though is in great condition, easy to drive, well graded. Actually looked like it had probably been graded not too long ago. And affording those fantastic vistas of the high country as we make our way around the edge of the mountain here. Being just down from the top too on the eastern side, it's sort of blocking that direct sun, so we're not copping that in the face the way we were, which is always nice as well. A lot of time spent on these sort of tracks driving in and out as it follows the contours of the hills. And we've just reached the intersection here with Walker's Road and the D9 track, so we're just edging our way up onto the D9 track, which will take us across to the Dead Finish track, and then Dunstan's Road to Gibson's hut. So yeah, never been this way before myself, and the guys up ahead actually picked this way to go. So that track on the left there is just an access track back down to Walker's Road. And we're just pushing on here on the D9 track to make our way through. That sun's come back with a vengeance. Lots of dead trees in this part of the high country, as you've seen. Sun's getting very low in the sky by this time. Not surprisingly for one of my trips, it's been a long day in the saddle. But we're certainly getting close to Gibson's hut now. And these tracks are all in pretty good condition through here. They're basically two-wheel drive gravel roads, nothing too difficult about any of these, so we're making really good time. Just passing here on the left, the western end of Walker's Road, which also gives you access down to Mount Pinnabar as well. So we're on the Dead Finish track here at this point, and yeah, that's the western end of Walker's Road with access down to Mount Pinnabar. Never approached Pinnabar from that direction myself. People we did speak to later in this trip suggested that it was pretty difficult going up that way at the moment. and I don't think that's changed. So yeah, as you can see there, we just turned left onto Dunstan's Road from the Dead Finish track, and we're heading down to Gibson's Hut. Again, really good condition tracks or roads through here, so making super good time. And just coming in now, we're approaching Gibson's Hut, which is on the corner of the Shady Creek Lower track and Dunstan's Road. So just pulling in here on the right. So straight ahead there is the continuation of Dunstan's Road, and the other two tracks take us into Gibson's Hut campground. A hard right here brings us straight down to the hut. Now there were some people that were set up and camping in the hut this weekend, so we did go in for a look in the hut, but I didn't actually take footage there, just because I didn't want to put somebody else's camping gear and stuff all over the internet on YouTube. So I just took some footage here from outside the hut. Really well made, looks fairly recently rebuilt. Certainly well made. It looks like one that was rebuilt like post bushfires or something. Yeah. And yeah, you can see Dan just rocking up here in the INEMU 90 Series Prado. He was the last to leave our last destination. Now what I didn't realise is that Shady Creek Lower Track is actually straight ahead, and that's the way we wanted to go. Now I could say I got confused by this guy that was here on the track. Like, we both sort of pulled over and then he pulled back further, so then I kept coming and he was then kind of blocking the track. But the simple fact is I didn't know where I was going, and we'd had some discussion about whether this track on the right here was the continuation of the campground, and we had thought that maybe that's what it was. So I figured logically we go back out to the track, and then the turn onto Shady Creek Upper will be, or Shady Creek Lower I should say, will be off that main track. Not the case. So heading back here just takes you straight back down to Dunstan's Road, which if you jump on and follow that, it's going to take you up to Shady Creek Upper. Yeah, this is not the way we wanted to go. And eventually I figured that out and managed to do myself a U-turn with the trailer on board, and then get back through the campground and at Gibson's Hut there, and head west on Shady Creek Lower Track. So I turned around, back through the campground on that track where the four-wheel drive sort of reversed into. There's a Land Cruiser there to let me pass, and that's where we're headed now, on Shady Creek Lower Track. It's about a 4 or 5k run through to the Cattleman's Creek Track, which is what we're heading for. So after Gibson's Hut was full, the camp area there was full, our backup plan was to head down to Wheeler's Creek Hut, knowing that there's a multitude of massive camp areas there. Wheeler's Creek Hut couldn't possibly be full, right? Yeah. As you'll see, it could be full, or almost completely full, but we'll cover that off when we get there. So a few little chewed up sections on the track through here, just slow and steady to make our way through those. So yeah, now because of the mix up with the direction, I'm actually tail end Charlie now, so I'm right at the back of the group. The other guys are a fair way ahead, and have to say, yeah, definitely was driving a lot slower with the trailer on than I normally would without the trailer, that's for sure. But that was fine, I was just taking my own time. I wasn't overly fussed about what time I particularly got to camp or anything. Now Luca waited up for me here, just in case I had any dramas with this hole in the track. Fortunately, no issues at all. Just slow and steady. Now, I don't know if I always had the best sense of when the trailer was going through things. I think I accelerated there a little sooner than I should have. And you can see once we're past that little obstacle, the rest of the track again is in pretty good nick and not presenting too much of a challenge at all, as we're just winding our way through to the Cattleman's Creek Track. And descending here, you can see the sun's almost disappearing below that range in the distance. Certainly not glaring in our faces anymore. And yeah, Luca actually pulled in behind me after that last section, and the other guys are actually a fair way ahead. I think at this point they were largely out of radio range, so they were sort of scouting, looking for a campsite as well. So yeah, making really good time, and just coming down here to the end of Shady Creek Lower and turning left onto Cattleman's Creek Track. It's called Cattleman's Creek Track, but it's really a very well made two-wheel drive gravel road that cuts through this part of the high country, and this goes all the way down to Wheeler's Creek Hut. So just crossing the little bridge there, and once we cross that first bridge, it's not too far at all, and we get to the next bridge, which is just near the entrance to Wheeler's Creek Hut on the other side of this hill. So yeah, the guys that just pulled up here, they'd actually already been down into Wheeler's Creek Hut area and seen how full it was. They'd identified maybe one spot where we could perhaps camp, and had just been talking about, you know, what are our options. And I did suggest to them that Paddy Joy was probably the place to go to check out. And I think some of them thought that they'd already been there and checked it, or they weren't sure where to get to it or how to get to it or whatever, I'm not sure, but they had identified a spot in at Wheeler's Creek Hut where there's already a group in there, but they're quite large areas at Wheeler's Creek Hut, and they reckon we could sort of cram in on the other side and sort of share with those people, which, you know, is not ideal. So the other guys headed in there to check that spot out, see if there was actually enough room there, and I was happy to go and check out Paddy Joy, and Luca followed me as well. So Paddy Joy campground is on the little Paddy Joy Creek, a little side tributary of Wheeler's Creek, and it's literally just a K or two up the road. there's a little access here off the side of Surveyors Creek logging track, which is the one that you want to take. It's the Paddy Joy track. And this is literally probably 1, maybe 2 kilometres past the entrance to Surveyors Creek Hut. And again, they've done plenty of spraying here. And it's a relatively short run in and down to the campground here. And yeah, you can see a little bit of a camping area there on the left, main camping area here on the right next to the river. There's even some spare firewood there. So yeah, it was clear to me this was the spot we wanted to be setting up. So yeah, I let Luca know that I was going to be pulling in here, and could he let the other guys know. He was a bit further back up the track and had radio range. So we did actually all end up setting up camp here and camping here for the night. So we'll leave this one here, guys. As always, thanks for watching, particularly if you watched all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. Those of you that do regularly watch to the end, I will see you in the next video, which will pick up from here. So yeah, thanks again, and see you then.